Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Climbers. Whitney here, fellow mountain climber and host of this channel. Listen, if you're inspired by the episodes on mountain climbers and it gives you hope that you'll reach the top of your mountain, then I would be so thrilled if you subscribe to my channel and then hit the bell while you're at it, because that will notify you every single time there is a new episode of Mountain Climbers. So I've said it many times before, but one of my favorite things here on Mountain Climbers is when we discuss an issue that has not been discussed on Mountain Climbers yet. And I love it even more when I have a guest that no one would suspect that they would be the one who would talk about this issue. And this is true for this episode today. I am beyond ecstatic to have the lovely Heather Baer as my guest today. So Heather has many roles, but one that you may not know is she is a soul winner and a prayer warrior. She has a tremendous legacy of being the first person in her family to get saved. And then after she got saved, she prayed for them without ceasing, fervently, and hoping and believing that one day they too would come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. But it's not always easy. And it's probably one of the biggest mountains that a Christian has to face, because we know that eternity is at stake. And when you pray and pray and pray for a very long time, it can get very discouraging and you may be tempted to doubt. And if that's where you're at today, then I would just strongly encourage you to hear Heather's message. And I just hope and I pray that it will just give this new found determination in your soul to pray like you never have before, and believe that God will touch your lost loved one's heart and give them the best miracle that's known to man. Hey Heather, thank you so much for being on Mountain Climbers.
Thank you for asking me, Whitney.
I am so excited because a theme that's been really stressed in our church right now is the power of prayer and never losing hope for praying for your lost loved ones. And you're a tremendous legacy, an example of this. So I can't wait for people to hear your story. And so we're just going to dive right in.
Okay.
And get started.
Sounds good.
So first, I just want you to tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up for you.
Well, I was born and raised in Otway, Ohio.
Okay.
A little speck on the map. I am the oldest of 3 kids.
Okay.
I have a sister, Amy, and a younger brother, Michael.
All right.
My mom and dad, Mike and Kim Free. My dad was a very hardworking man, provided for our family, and mom was blessed to be able to stay home with us kids.
Okay.
And so we were raised on a farm area, worked hard, and just had a typical rural life there. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. It sounds like the American dream.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I know is that you were not raised in a Christian home. So I'm curious, what drew you to the decision to start attending church?
Well, I wasn't raised in a Christian home, but I do remember, I remember pictures of mom taking us to church. Her and my grandma, they didn't, weren't faithfully attending church, but they did always, take us. We went to Bible school and things like that. I have very fond memories of my dad's mom and dad, my grandma and grandpa Free. They were very good Christians. They were an influence in my life. But they took me to a little church around the hill, and I would go often with them. But it wasn't until 1993, and I was trying to think last night of the month or whatever, that I got a call on a Sunday afternoon from Mary Brown, which is Brian's cousin, my husband Brian, and she had called and said, "Heather, would you like to come to church tonight?" Brian was at her house at the time.
Oh, so did he kind of instigate this?
A little bit, yes. He had seen me the day before.
Okay.
My sister and his cousin Mary's daughter played bitty basketball together.
Okay.
And we had seen each other at the bitty basketball game.
Yeah.
And I seen him, and I knew of him. I knew of their family. I mean, Beach Fork. I had attended there off and on, not regularly, but. So I seen him, and he seen me or whatever. So didn't think much about it. Well, the next day I got the call and said, "Would you like to come to church tonight?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have anything else to do." So I went to church that night, and I guess you say the rest is history. But I started from then on faithfully going to Beach Fork.
Now, did your family understand this and support it?
They did. Of course, I got the occasional, "You're just going to church to see a boy," kind of thing. But all in all, they were pretty supportive of me going. They would actually take me. My dad would take me down, drop me off, and come back and pick me up. I mean, that's how I got there.
Well, so how long was it? You started attending church. When did you get saved between that time?
Probably, that's another thing I was trying to think. It was probably a couple months after I had started attending faithfully that I do remember. I don't remember the day.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, the number, but I remember sitting there in church, and I remember feeling the conviction. Of course, not really understanding totally what it was. And Burnett Brown, her and Tom were the youth leaders at the time. And she came back to me and asked me if I'd like to go pray. And I was more than ready to go pray. But I remember that morning kneeling there and asking the Lord to come into my life at that time.
Did your family understand? Was it difficult to even tell them?
Not really. Again, they had been letting me go and everything like that. And so it wasn't something that they were upset about or anything like that. It's just kind of thing that wasn't really talked about. It was like, okay, that's fine. We're proud of you, kind of thing. But no, they were fine with that.
How difficult was it to pray for your lost loved ones now that you knew that there is an eternal destination for the soul?
Right. It was easy to pray for them. Not always easy to witness to them. I kind of had a hard time, maybe saying, you need to go to church, because I didn't want to conflict or anything like that. My thing was, I would just pray that my life that I would live for them would help them to see, that they needed to be in church.
Yeah. And I totally get that. Your dad was like my grandpa.
Yeah.
And so it was very hard to witness.
Yes.
Sometimes the only thing you could do, the best thing you could do for men like that is just live it.
Exactly.
And which you did.
I did the best I could. Yes.
Well, obviously you did because your family started getting saved.
Yes.
So who was the first family member that got saved after you?
My mom.
Okay.
Yes, my mom had gotten saved. She, we were talking about this too. My nephews were born. My first nephew was born in 97.
Okay.
He was very early. He was a preemie, and during that time, and then my other nephew was born a little over, right at a year later.
Okay.
So during that time, Mom's heart was softened quite a bit, and that's when she accepted the Lord. And I was talking to her last night. I said, "Mom, I remember the night you were saved." I said, they were singing in the choir, "Give up and let Jesus take over," and she did. She did. And I was thinking about this, Burnett had always, they were such great youth leaders. And there was a verse that she had that's still embedded in me, "Do not grow weary in well doing, for in due season you'll reap if you faint not." Yeah. And when my mom got saved, I thought, I didn't give up. I didn't give up. Yeah. So she was one of the first that got saved.
That's awesome. And then kind of, was it a domino effect in your sister?
Yes. Yeah. And several. My aunt Carrie. And my other aunt, by marriage, she had also been attending church. So several had started attending. Yeah.
Now, your dad was really resistant to this.
Yes.
For a very long time. So much so that all these family members started getting saved and joining you in prayer.
Yes.
You married Brian and had kids. They started,
Absolutely.
praying for your dad. And so I'm sure it was really difficult to watch him struggle with conviction.
Yes.
And then you get the news that he has cancer.
Yes.
Now, it'd be devastating for any family.
Absolutely.
But the fact that you knew he wasn't ready for eternity, did that make it an even bigger blow?
Yes. My dad, like I said earlier, he was such a hard worker. I mean, the man would do anything for anybody.
Yeah.
He had struggled with addiction and was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that part of growing up was really hard.
Yeah.
And it made him a hard man. Very hard to reach, very hard to talk to at times. You had to catch him in the right mood and things like that. But yeah, knowing, he was lost, and then we got that devastating news and in 2005 that he was diagnosed with cancer. And it was very hard to see a man that, was very strong all of a sudden become, become weak, not mentally, weak just because of that blow.
Was the prognosis good?
At the time, they did give us a good, at the time it was throat cancer.
Okay.
So they went in and they removed some lymph nodes and things like that. And, so they, thought everything, that we would be good. He would do treatments and he would continue to work and continue to do well. And so that, that was a good diagnosis. And then 1 year later, almost to the day, he was diagnosed with lung cancer.
And that was probably not good.
No. Yeah. 2006, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And then a little later, he was diagnosed with cancer behind his eye. It also went to several other places in his body. Yeah.
That's awful. So, here he is battling cancer, but he's also battling conviction, which makes that 10 times worse.
Exactly.
So how was that for you? How did you pray for him?
Oh, it was hard, because most of all, I wanted him to be healed physically. Yeah. But I wanted him to be saved because I didn't at that time. We didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah. So it was difficult.
Yeah. Did you ever wonder, is he ever going to get saved?
Oh, yes. I kept thinking, what's it going to take?
Yeah.
Lord, he's gotten cancer, what else, because when that happened and he did start treatments and then he did get sick, he couldn't work.
Oh, no.
And that was his thing. If he couldn't work and couldn't go out and work on the farm, I mean, that you're taking his life from him. Yeah. So it was hard.
So God basically took him rock bottom.
Yes.
And took everything away from him so he could speak to him.
Exactly.
And so he was in a perfect position for what happened next. So what were you feeling when you heard that Jamie Bacon-Hasser felt led to go speak to your dad?
We had been working outside. Dad was still, doing really well at the time. And we had been out that day, probably busting wood or working on the farm, mowing grass, doing something. We'd worked outside all day. And we just come in the house to get ready to eat and stuff. My dad had went back to get cleaned up. Yeah. And there was a knock at the door. We had no idea that she was coming that night.
Oh, my goodness.
No idea. So the kids were like, somebody's at the door, and they were all, so Jamie comes in and she said, I'm here to speak to Mike Free. And I knew Jamie. Mom knew Jamie. We knew Jamie.
You're
and
like,
yeah. So my thing was, how's Dad going to take this? But I thought, you know what? If the Lord sent her here, He's preparing the way.
Exactly.
So, of course, my dad was in the front living room. We were all in the kitchen and, so all of a sudden we hear Jamie in her way, shouting and praising the Lord. And so we immediately began to cry because we knew what had happened. And so Dad came in and you could just tell there was a total difference on his face. Yeah, total change. Yeah.
What were you feeling? I mean, you prayed for this so long. Didn't think it was going to happen. And it finally did.
Yeah, it was surreal. I was almost like in shock. I'm like, why am I in shock though? I knew God could do it, but it had been so long, and for it to finally happen, it was just, there was such a burden lifted, the weight lifted off. Yeah.
So how long after your dad got saved to the point that he lost the battle with cancer?
He got saved, I think it was November. I think we were talking about this last night it wasn't long after he was first diagnosed. Okay. So, my dad passed away in February of 2007. Okay. So he almost a little less than 2 years from the day of his first diagnosis that he passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know, heartbreaking. I just went through that with my grandpa, and it's so heartbreaking. But how did it help your heart, and even now helps your heart to know he's in heaven and you're going to see him again?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every day, I think of my dad. There's something that happens at the house, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could call my dad and ask him how to do this, you know. But knowing that where he's at, he's no longer in pain. He can breathe fine. He can, you know, he can, you know, he's not struggling, you know. We had to feed him with a tube. I mean, he couldn't eat. He had to have a feeding tube. You know, so many things. To see the strong man that I knew growing up, to, you know, knowing that he's no longer suffering. I mean, that's a blessing. Yeah.
When, you know, he you know, went.
Yes.
Was it you just knew, like, you know, he was in God's arms?
Absolutely. We had all gathered. He had gotten home from the hospital, like, I think, I can't remember what day it was. It was a couple days. They sent him home with hospice. And we got home and we had a hospital bed for him and everything. And he was still able to get up a little bit and move around and do some things. But the morning that he really got bad, he wanted Mom to call all of us kids. And we came up and he wanted to tell us, you know what? He wanted, you know, you know, he was more so like, hey, if you want to sell the truck, you can, whatever. I'm like, Dad. And finally I just stopped him. I said, Dad, I don't care about things. I don't really care what you've got out there. I said, my question for you is, are you ready? And do you love the Lord? He said, Heather, I love the Lord. And those words, you know, hear those words meant so much. And that evening, we had several family members in. They had been there in and out all day. Dad was getting tired, and we could tell. And he was laying there in his bed, and I think we were watching Wheel of Fortune or something. And I looked over, and I noticed him peaceful. You know, he was peaceful, but he was taking some deeper breaths. And so I went and, you know, told my mom, I said, Mom, something's not right. So at that time, we all kind of were gathered around his bedside. And, you know, we were saying, you know, when he would start to slow breathing, we were like, Dad, 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 you know, wanting to breathe. And then finally, I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, we have to tell him it's okay. We're going to be okay. So I remember, I think my sister was on one side. I mean, my brother was on the other side. My mom, we were all right there. When he took his last breath, it was on my brother's side. He squeezed one of our hands, and then a tear just went down his cheek, and it was just peace. It was just peace, and it was something I'll never forget. You know, it was a very peaceful passing.
And I'm so glad you have that assurance. Because it's everything. Everything. And, you know, to me, Heather, you're just this, like, tremendous legacy to your family because you showed them the way. By your example, they got saved. They knew that they needed to make things right with the Lord. But unfortunately, we know a lot of people who are still praying for their lost loved ones. And
I'm still praying for a lot of mine. I've still got some that.
So you know,
I know. I'm still in the battle.
Me too. And you know, sometimes you wonder, is it ever going to happen? You doubt. And we're human.
We are.
We're human, so we're going to doubt. And you know, God understands that. And so I just would love for you, as someone who prayed, never gave up, and you saw the promise that God gave you, you know, it happened. And Dad got saved. Encourage those people to never give up.
I mean, and that's it. You even though there's days where you want to give up, you know, you're thinking, you know, I prayed and you know, seems like they take 2 or 3 steps forward and then, you know, 5 steps back, you know, it's very hard. It's disheartening, you know, because you want them to have what you have. You want them to have that peace that you know they can have. And it just never give up. Just keep on praying. I mean, I'm still praying for several of my family, you know, that still need to be saved. And I know that Lord's able to touch them, you know, and he has to do it in his way. You know, I can't go to them and throw the Bible at them and say, this is what you need to do. Sometimes I want to shake them because they know,
exactly.
They know what they, they know what they need to do. But I just try my best to live my life. I know better. No better than them at all. I don't want anybody to think that just because you're saved, you feel like you're I just know where God has brought me from and what He's done for me over these years. I mean, the miracles that I've seen, and just never, don't grow weary in well doing. We're in due season, and that season, is hard to wait on. But in due season,
it is, and I think it's probably the toughest mountain anyone climbs.
Yes,
because it's so hard because we know there is an eternal destination.
Yes, absolutely,
and we want to be with our family and get to spend eternity with them.
Yes,
and so I thank you so much for sharing your story, because you show that there are mountaintop victories with this mountain.
Absolutely,
God gives huge miracles and breaks the hardest of hearts.
Absolutely,
and so you're just a living testimony to this truth. When your strength comes from the right source, there's not a mountain you can't climb.